Have you ever wondered how a moment of kindness could change not just one life, but create ripples of compassion that touch countless others? Welcome to a channel where we not only entertain, but grow together as human beings. In a world that desperately needs more understanding and empathy, especially for the legacy we'll leave our children and grandchildren, these stories remind us that change starts with each of us. If you're new here and believe in the power of storytelling to transform lives, consider subscribing and joining our community of kindred spirits. Now get comfortable as we dive into a tale that might just change the way you look at every stranger you meet. Uber driver belittled by couple, they'd never do it again. The autumn rain pelted against the windshield as Miguel Ramirez, a 65-year-old Uber driver, peered through his glasses at the glowing phone screen, accepting what would be his final ride of the night. 25 years of working as a hospital orderly before retirement hadn't prepared him for the loneliness of rideshare driving. But his son's mounting medical bills left him little chores. He pulled up to the curb outside an upscale restaurant in downtown Chicago, where a young couple huddled under the awning. Sarah Chen, a rising investment banker, and her boyfriend, James Harrison, a tech startup founder, rushed toward the car, their designer clothes already dampening from the rain. "You couldn't have pulled up closer?" Sarah snapped, sliding into the back seat. James followed, muttering something about basic service expectations. Miguel felt his chest tighten at their words, but maintained his dignified silence. He'd learned long ago that dignity wasn't about how others treated you, but how you carried yourself in response. As he navigated through the rain-slicked streets, the couple continued their conversation as if he were invisible, discussing their plans for an upcoming vacation to the Maldives. "Can you at least turn up the heat?" James demanded, his voice carrying that particular tone of someone used to having their every whim catered to. Miguel adjusted the temperature, his weathered hands steady on the wheel as he thought about his son, Carlos, lying in a hospital bed across town. The very reason he was out driving at this hour was to afford the specialized epilepsy medication that insurance wouldn't cover. The rain intensified, transforming the city streets into shimmering rivers of reflected neon. Through his rearview mirror, Miguel noticed James becoming increasingly agitated, his face flushed, his movements jerky. Sarah was too engrossed in her phone to notice, but Miguel recognized those signs. He'd seen them countless times with Carlos. "I don't feel," James began, his words slurring. Before he could finish, his body went rigid. Miguel's heart jumped into his throat as he watched James's eyes roll back, his body beginning to convulse violently. Sarah's scream pierced the car's interior. "James, oh my God, what's happening? Someone help!" Her phone clattered to the floor as she tried to hold James, who was now shaking uncontrollably. In that moment, Miguel's 25 years of medical experience kicked in. He smoothly pulled the car over, his movements calm and practiced. "Move back, please," he instructed Sarah, his voice carrying an authority that made her comply instantly. "He's having a seizure. We need to give him space." The rain drummed steadily against the car roof as Miguel swiftly moved into action. With the practiced ease of someone who had handled countless medical emergencies, he reclined James's seat and turned him onto his side. "Time," he said firmly to Sarah, who stared at him in shock. "We need to time the seizure. Use your phone." Sarah's trembling fingers found her phone on the floor. Through her tears, she watched as this man, the same driver they had dismissed so callously minutes ago, worked with the precision of a seasoned medical professional. His gentle hands protected James from hurting himself, while his calm voice provided a steady anchor in the chaos. "Listen carefully," Miguel explained, his accent carrying the weight of experience. "We're 4 minutes from Northwestern Memorial's emergency entrance. I know a route through the side streets that will get us there faster than any GPS. When the seizure stops, we'll move. For now, we wait and protect him." The seconds ticked by like hours. Sarah noticed how Miguel positioned himself to support James's head while simultaneously checking his breathing. She remembered their earlier behavior, their casual cruelty, their thoughtless words, and shame washed over her like the rain outside. 3 minutes and 42 seconds later, James's convulsions began to subside. Without missing a beat, Miguel checked his vital signs and pupil response using the flashlight from his phone. "He's stabilizing," he announced, already moving back to the driver's seat. "Hold his hand, talk to him softly. He'll be confused when he fully comes around." The car moved through the rainy streets like a ship navigating treacherous waters. Miguel took turns and shortcuts that weren't on any map, knowledge gained from years of walking hospital corridors and driving these streets. He radioed ahead to the emergency room, another skill from his previous life, ensuring a team would be ready. As they approached the hospital, Sarah found her voice. "How did you know what to do?" she asked, her previous arrogance replaced by genuine wonder. Miguel caught her eye in the rearview mirror, and for the first time, she truly saw him, the intelligence in his gaze, the quiet strength in his bearing. 25 years as a hospital orderly," he replied, pulling up to the emergency entrance where a medical team was already waiting. "And my son Carlos, he has epilepsy. Every moment with him has been a lesson in both medicine and love." The medical team worked quickly, transferring James onto a gurney. As they rushed him inside, a young doctor who had taken James's initial assessment turned to Miguel. "Sir, your quick action and proper emergency response likely prevented serious complications. We need more details about the seizure." Miguel provided a detailed medical report using terminology that surprised even the attending physician. Sarah stood in the rain, watching this exchange, her worldview shifting like the shadows cast by the emergency room lights.
The next morning, James lay in his hospital bed, diagnosed with a previously undetected form of epilepsy that had finally manifested. Sarah sat beside him, both of them processing not just the medical news but the profound lesson in humanity they'd received. Miguel, who had stayed until he knew James was stable, had left without seeking any recognition or thanks, simply leaving his contact information with the nurses' station. Through her business connections, Sarah discovered more about their humble savior. Miguel had been forced to retire early when his hospital downsized, just as his son's epilepsy treatments became more expensive. Rather than bitter, he had chosen to continue serving others through his driving, using his earnings to fund Carlos's medical care. 1 week later, Miguel arrived for what he thought was a regular Uber pickup at the same upscale restaurant. Instead, he found Sarah and a recovered James waiting. Their eyes held none of their previous condescension, replaced by genuine warmth and remorse. "Your knowledge and compassion saved my life," James began, his voice thick with emotion. "But more than that, you taught us something we desperately needed to learn." Sarah stepped forward, holding an envelope. "We want to help with Carlos's medical bills," she explained. "And we've started a foundation to support healthcare workers who continue to serve their communities after retirement." Miguel's eyes welled with tears as Sarah continued. "The foundation will provide medical coverage for rideshare drivers and their families. We're calling it the Night Rain Foundation, to remind us that sometimes our greatest teachers come disguised as ordinary moments in the rain." But Miguel's impact reached even further. James's tech company developed an app connecting retired medical professionals with transportation services, creating a network of highly skilled drivers ready to handle emergencies. Sarah's investment firm provided the initial funding, and soon the program spread across the country. Carlos received the treatment he needed, and Miguel no longer had to work late nights. Instead, he volunteered to train other drivers in basic emergency response, sharing not just his medical knowledge but his philosophy of dignity and service. The story made local news, then national headlines, inspiring others to look beyond surface judgments and recognize the hidden depths in every person they meet. Sarah and James became close friends with Miguel and his family, their lives forever intertwined by that rainy night. Years later, when asked about the incident, Miguel would simply smile and say, "Every person we meet is fighting a battle we know nothing about. The real emergency that night wasn't the seizure, it was the need to see each other's humanity." The Foundation's annual report always opened with a simple question. Have you ever wondered how many angels disguised as Uber drivers you've passed by without noticing? If this story touched your heart and made you think differently about the people you meet every day, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Remember, we're all connected in this journey called life, and sometimes the greatest acts of kindness come from those we least expect. Don't forget to subscribe to join our community of storytellers and changemakers, because together we can make this world a little bit better, one story at a time. After all, the next stranger you meet might just be your angel in disguise. Together, let's create more stories of compassion, understanding, and hope. See you in our next video, where we'll continue exploring the beautiful moments that remind us of our shared humanity.